How much money will the city of Marysville bring in this coming budget year, and how much will it spend? Find out tonight at 6 p.m. during City Council Tonight here on Yuba-Sutter.live and Facebook.com/LiveStreamingYS. Marysville Finance Director Jennifer Stasinski presents a guided tour, shows how and why the budget is developed, where funds come from, and how they're proposed to be spent. What Marysville streets will be resurfaced in 2022-23? That's also on tonight's Marysville City Council agenda. So is what agency will be running the city's owner-occupied housing rehabilitation program. It's funded by a $1 million federal grant. A temporary lease extension of the Riverfront Park motocross facility will buy the city and the operator some time to negotiate a new lease. That's a $10,000 extension for 2 months, and the $3,000 Gold Sox baseball lease of Bryant Field through August 15th is up for approval. But wait, there's more. Councilman Don Belza wants to discuss having town halls and the expected outcomes. There's a presentation by Yuba Water Agency's Jackie Silman. We don't know what that's about, but stay tuned, you'll find out. A Bacchae fireworks proposal by the Marysville Chinese community is on the agenda. Committee appointments, reports by City Manager Jim Schad, council members, and informative and sometimes surprising things come out of those. It's all live, in color, beginning around 6 p.m. after the City Council's closed session right here on Yuba-Sutter.live and Facebook.com/LiveStreamingYS. It's our local version of C-SPAN. The Yuba City Council meeting will follow tonight, right after Marysville, presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage. Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com.
Meeting come to order. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Be heard. discussed
Recording in
ways
progress.
to kill them without introduction of pesticides, which would be harmful. We eventually decided on owls, and from there we decided to turn it into an eagle project. I got the approval from several people, including the Buttes Area District, the members of my scout troop. Then one of the members of the city went and did a USA to make sure it was safe to dig, and from there we began working. We dug the holes with an auger, which is a giant drill. Then we built the boxes with tenors. We worked on the poles in. The first box we did was a bit short, so we had to attach a 4x4 to it. It was kind of heavy and sways a little, but other than that, it's fine. We put it up there, as you can see. My brother and dad helped. We learned a couple of things. We learned that concrete keeps it in place. We learned we should probably see boxes before we put the poles up. It's generally a good idea. We learned we wouldn't need to extend the rest of the boxes, which was good because that was a pain. For boxes 2, 3, and 4, we got them done in a day with a couple fellow scouts in the troop and some adults. We, as you can see there, we put them up. There's dad with a 2x4, and we removed the braces. They're going to be very maintenance. They may need to be revarnished if the weather's bad, but other than that, I'd like to thank my dad for helping me with most parts of the project. He helped with power tools. He helped when putting the poles up. He was probably the most important part of the project. Yeah. I'd like to thank Ms. Tudor for inspiring me to do this and helping me for every step along the way. I'd like to thank my fellow scouts from Troop 389 and their parents for helping me with putting up the boxes and building them. I'd like to thank the Friends for the Preservation of Yuba County History for their donation of a nice sum of money to help build them. I'd like to thank Lowe's Yuba City, Twin City Equipment Rental, and the City of Marysville for donating several key components for the boxes. And I'd like to thank my family for being supportive of me.
Young people like this feel a lot better about the future, don't you? That's just great. Liam, I'm proud to present you with the certificate of appreciation, and the explanation was a bonus. That was what your inspiration and execution, your presentation of your work was excellent. Thank you, sir.
Please sign here to say that I actually
No problem. Date is the 17th. I don't know why you have to find her. Thank you again. Thank you again. Next, we have, am I on cue here for the, thank you. And you can see that Brad, Councilman Hudson, dressed for the occasion. You're a veteran, right? This is a proclamation declaring the month of May 22 as National Military Appreciation Month in the city of Marysville. Do we have many veterans in the room? Whereas the freedom and security the citizens of the United States enjoy today are the direct result of those who gave their lives in defense of our country and because of the continued vigilance given by the United States Armed Forces over the history of our great nation. And whereas sacrifices made by the members of the United States Armed Forces and their families have preserved the liberties that have enriched the nation, making it unique in the world community. And whereas in 1999, the United States Congress chose the month of May as National Military Appreciation Month because we celebrate several other significant observance days in May, such as commemoration of Victory in Europe Day, Military Spouse Appreciation Day, Loyalty Day, Armed Forces Day /week, National and Memorial Day. And whereas this observance is meant to raise awareness and encourage celebration and appreciation of those who serve and those who have served in the armed forces. It is also time for all Americans to remember that those who have given their lives in defense of freedom. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Chris Branscombe, and our City Council of the City of Marysville do hereby declare the month of May 2022 as National Military Appreciation Month in the City of Marysville. We ask that our community join us to honor and thank the men and women of our armed force services who have served and are now serving in our country. Would those who raised their hand come forward? I'd like to present this. The veterans, come on, don't be shy. This is no time. Please accept this and with appreciation for your service. You bet. You bet. This is where it should go. And you can find a proper home for that. Okay. Marvelous. Marvelous. Thank you very much. Thanks, Brad. Nope, they're going to find a home for it. That's what should be done. How are we doing? Okay, we are now, Mr. John Lim and Candace Young, if you'd like to come forward. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And we understand that you wish to make a proposal with respect to Buckeye fireworks. Welcome, and we're looking forward to hearing from you.
Good evening. I'm Candace Young, and I'm from the Marysville Buckeye Committee. or parade committee, I rephrase that. And I'm here in support of the Chinese community and their proposed expansion of the weekend, starting with a fireworks show and many other activities. But we want to share with you our proposal of where this is going to go. So I'll hand this over to John because he has a lot of the ideas and he is pretty much the start of where it's going to expand.
Good evening. And after this year's Buckeye Parade, some things were thrown around about trying to get, I was kind of reminiscing like when I was a kid back in the 70s and 80s when things was happening all weekend long and people were there all weekend long. Businesses were happy, people were happy. For the past few years, the pyrotechnics company that's been providing the fireworks, the firecrackers for the parade, and then also has been really wanting us to do a fireworks thing, an official one, because as we all know, things happen and there are fireworks. So what we would like to try and do is to do an official fireworks show on Saturday night, find some sponsors, get it going, and get some more stuff down there. And if the cities agree with that, then we'd also, Candace and I had also other things possibly happen, a car and bike show and a rib cook-off. And we've got a venue for that, for the bike and the rib cook-off. I talked to John Nicoletti over at Habitat, and he said that, that could probably be a good spot, for Sunday. Also talking with Marnie over at Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce, she had also brought up some more ideas about what we could do for, like with the Marysville Business District, like after the Christmas parade, they had that thing going on. So maybe possibly doing that after the parade on Saturday and maybe something on Sunday as well. And the reason why we're here is just to find out before Candace and I go full hog run trying to get this stuff in order is if it's even possible. We're looking at on the levee right there behind C Street where Chinese school is, where the old playground used to be. I don't know the specifics of what and where and much room there. I can't get
this. The way I understand it is you wish to expand the breadth of the session in terms of time and activities. Is that correct?
Sure.
And you want to get a sense of the temperature.
Pretty much, because
city management and city council.
Yes.
If you saw me lean over with the city attorney, he reminded me something I knew, but he reminded me, well, we can't take any formal action.
Absolutely.
But we can discuss this. And you can get some feedback. And Vice Mayor, would you like to start with feedback on this?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I mean, it'd be nice to try to bring back what we saw in the 70s and how it was, but in any activity that would help grow it. I mean, obviously it's going to take the police chief and the fire department to be able to put it together. Absolutely. But I'd be in complete support of all of the activities you want to add.
Mr. Hudson.
I really love Buckeye. I love everything you guys do for the city during that weekend, and I know how much work you guys put into it. So I thank you for that, and the fact that you're willing to put more work into it as a committee and as individuals of the community and so forth. That's fun, and I support that to the best I can on that. Not financially, but I do support that. So I think it's a great idea for what you guys are going to do, and I look forward to it.
Great, thank you.
Councilman Belzer.
Yeah, I would support it as well. I think it's great and that weekend and getting more people down, staying longer is fantastic. And I've got 3 little kids at home that would love a fireworks show. Soon to be, but 3 at the time.
Thank you.
Councilman Gilchrist.
So you have my 100% support. What I love the most about this, your presentation, is you did mention working with the chamber, working with John Nicoletti on the food options, etc. I love this idea by working with the chamber and involving the Marysville Business Alliance. The monies will trickle down through interaction with our business community to help our general fund to help us pay for the services to maintain this. So this is a very good idea. On a personal note, I'm hoping that the fireworks are staged where you had them this last year, because on a personal note, my bedroom window has an impeccable view of exactly where these fireworks take place. And I have 4 cats, and they don't seem to mind. Hope that you continue excellent planning, working with city staff on getting the proper permits, etc. That is all we ask. Ask and you shall receive. This is a very good day in Marysville. Thank you for your presentation.
You're on a roll here. I have copies of 2 books that have been published. Describing the history of the Chinese community as a principal author or participant in putting at least one of those books together. And I keep them prominently displayed and look at them rather frequently. It's a great time in the history of the city. And I'm completely in support of whatever you want to do. And I think the people to reach out to would be city management, Mr. Shad, with any specifics, and I'm certain he feels the same way. Jim, what?
Oh, I don't want to belabor it. Yes, definitely support it. The coordination will be with my staff, primarily our police and fire staff, to make sure that we keep the city while doing so. But looking.
Marysville up at the top of the list with a couple of other events. The Christmas parade's pretty nice, but Bok Kai goes back. It goes way back, and it's connected to a wonderful temple, and we're looking forward to seeing where this goes. Thank you so much for coming to us and sharing your ideas. Madam Finance Director, you have something that you're going to go through real quickly and no one's going to fall asleep, right?
Correct. I narrowed down the slides to only be 3 hours instead of 4. So I think we're going to be good tonight.
I think you'll do great. Thank you, Jonathan.
So good evening, Mayor and Council Member. Tonight I am here to give an overview of our 22-23 budget. Prior to starting, though, I just want to thank the team that we've had. This is a group effort. This comes from working with department heads individually. It comes from several meetings, departments working with their staff, working with the city manager on a one-on-one basis. Yes.
Real quickly, would you just describe, I think it's important to understand the context of what you're presenting in terms of the process. So this is step 1, which is management has dug through and come up with a proposed budget, and then this budget will be discussed individually or with pairs of council members in detailed private sessions, and then those sessions will be distilled in another public meeting where we come together on a full budget.
Correct, on June 7th, and then after that, it'll be passed on June 21st if everything is good to go.
Okay, that's the context. Thank you.
Correct. So it's been about 2 months prior to this, working with all the directors and the city manager to come to this point for this presentation. So I just wanted to thank everybody in that aspect. Okay, So we'll just have a few quick slides. Again, this is our presentation agenda, just so you know we're going through. We're going to go through very quickly the economy big picture, why we budget, general fund overview, proposed expenses. We're going to talk a little bit about some enterprise capital projects, ARPA, the next steps, and how we plan for the future. So just as a quick, just to let you know how it's going right now, is that unemployment has been decreasing since the peak of April of 2020 during COVID. At that point, it was around 15.9%. Right now, unemployment in March was 5.7%. So unemployment is getting better. However, inflation is on the rise. We have had an increase of 8.3% inflation in the past year. So employment's getting better. However, things are getting more expensive to purchase. With that being said, we're also going at the point that gas prices are going up. It's around a 45% increase from the same time last year, after we hit record lows that we hadn't seen in several years. And then the other part is for the first time since 2018, the feds are actually starting to increase by a quarter of a point the interest rate. So we are coming out of COVID, but we are going into a slightly unstable economy going into this. Our next slide. So this is just a quick overview. Why do we do a budget? So what the process is. So we budget because it gives us an awareness review of how we receive our money. It makes us go through and figure out how we're spending our money. It allows us to basically look at the habits and the spending habits of our departments, what our obligations are, what are our loan payments, what do we need, what do we not need. It also allows us to plan for our future, and also goes through the financial goals that are set forth by council. Next page. So again, the mission of the budget process is to help decision makers, the council, make informed choices about the provision of services and capital assets, and to promote both management, employee, and citizen participation in the process. So here is where everybody really wants to be, is they want to look at the numbers. So this is just a general fund overview. It's a 5-year revenue and expense comparison, so you can see where we were in 2018-19, and that's the very first, and then the very last one is what we project for 22-23, what our proposed is. I do want to point out that you do see a significant increase in 2021, and that was due to the fact that I have to bring out my notes here. We did have an increase in sales tax of about 1.1 million over that time. A lot of it, even though we were going through COVID, the amount of online sales and other sales were increasing at that time. So sales tax, there was a jump up. We also had about $600,000 increase in cannabis. This is when our Measure N started to come into effect. We also had brought in around 400,000 in strike team, which is not usual. It was a very heavy strike team. And we also had a sale of the golf course of around 800,000. In the middle, we see the expenses are lower than that because, again, we were beginning with COVID. We did not know how it was going to look. So we kept a very status quo budget, and we were very conservative with our expenses, not knowing if our was going to start dropping dramatically or not. So if we look at the next year for fiscal year 21-22, the reason that has also stayed stable is we didn't have the strike team and we didn't have the sale of the golf course. However, the city did receive one of two payments, the ARPA payments for, I have it listed out. I got a little bit nervous on that. It's on another sheet. We're going to talk about ARPA, but it's the money that the federal government was giving to all cities to help with the recovery of COVID. So we received 1.53 million in this current fiscal year we're in, and we're set to receive the 1.53 million in the 22-23. Again, that includes ARPA funds, but that's also increasing due to that we have about $700,000 more in grants coming in, expected in this next fiscal year, mainly due to the fact that we will be having our LEAP and REAP grants, which we'll talk about later, that will be helping to pay the specific and zoning plans. So this is just going over our projected beginning fund balance. So right now we're looking as of June 30th, 2022 of a projected fund balance of $9,383,000 $983,354. I do want to remind you that a fund balance is the total assets minus our liabilities. So it's not only cash, but it's our receivables and our prepaid inventory. And I want to say that this is also an unaudited number because we don't know how this year is going to look. We did start with the fiscal year 2021 with an audited fund balance of $6.78 million. And we were looking at about as we saw on that last slide, about a $2.7 million surplus in this current fiscal year that we're in. Most of it is the 1.5 of the ARPA funds. And a lot of it too was we had also budgeted for $400,000 for a general plan this current fiscal year. It has not been complete. We've spent about $38,000. So it was actually moving into this next fiscal year that we're coming into. So we did not spend that $400,000. So looking at this, and also in our projected revenues, I want to note that there's about $1.4 million in grant revenues that we're expecting to be coming in. Most of those are pass-through grants. We have a CalVIP, we have a cannabis grant. We have a few others that the city will, we won't be receiving the money on it. Again, they're pass-through grants. We have 4 of those. And we're going to be spending almost exact same amount. Really what it is we have $22,000 as a match for our grants that are coming in and out. But that does increase the overall revenues. Again, the revenues includes the $1.5 million in ARPA. And then in our projected expenses, which we will go through on later slides, it also includes $692,000 in proposed one-time expenses and $1.95 million of proposed ARPA expenses. So with that being said, we're looking at with this budget, about a deficit of $50,000. If we were to take out the ARPA funds and not have that as part of the calculation this time, we would actually be having a surplus of around $410,000 in this current fiscal year. But ARPA is one-time funds that's coming in and out. So this is leaving us with a projected reserve balance of 6.86%. I do want to include that in the projected ending fund balance, the 9.3, that still includes $1.1 million of ARPA funds that will be received, but will still need to be expended in future years. So it's basically one-time money that's still sitting in there. If we pulled that out, we actually fund $0.2 million, which is around a 46.77% reserve. So every percent, if you're trying to bring down, if you're talking about your reserve, is around $120,000. So with that being said, if you wanted to have a reserve balance of $40%, you would have around $800,000 in one-time expenses that you could spend or other ongoing expenses in this year and still maintain 40% reserve. So just to put that in context. And I also do want to bring aware that this does not include current negotiations, that we are currently in negotiations with all three of our bargaining units, and any numbers that come out of that are not included in these current projections, as that number is unknown. I do want to make sure that is clear. Okay, kind of big slide. So then we'll just start moving on to some comparisons just to let you know. So this is just going through our general fund, our top revenues that we had. So what we budgeted and what we projected. And in general, we pretty much brought in a little bit more than we originally projected. The biggest one is on Measure C. We did have some accounts that were being held by the state in the past for auditing purposes, and they were released to us. So that's the main reasons. We never know when they're going to actually do some back pay for a sales tax for us. The other item that I do want to mention is under other revenue that did go up around $230,000. There's not a one cost that we could identify. It was just several little costs that have gone in. We had a few more in construction permits. We had a few more in the adjustment for the new D10 hallway contract. So nothing large amounts, just small amounts that were either slightly above or slightly below. So we'll do next slide. This one is just to show everybody that if you're looking at our revenue for the city, the general fund is the bulk of our overall budget that comes in. This does not include the enterprise fund or the wastewater fund, but it also includes our special revenue funds, which is our gas tax or street money, our SLESF, Supplemental Law Enforcement Services Fund, that we do receive. And then we have several PD grants that are specific to overtime that help us enforcement for cannabis, tobacco, and alcohol. Those are all included under your special revenue. And then capital projects, the reason, and again, that one is a little bit lower. Originally, what we thought going to bring in is we thought the general plan is still not completed, so it was originally for the full amount. Since we haven't spent that, this is just overall, just as you can see on departments as a whole. So as you can tell, every department overall has had these from what we originally projected. Most of the time that is due to salary savings. The only one that was slightly higher was the HR budget, and that was due to some confidential HR. Next slide. So this is just to do a 3-year comparison of our top roads that come into the city. So we have what the greenish slide is what actually did happen in 2021. Middle is what we project, and then the lighter green is actually what we're actually proposing. So as you can see, it is over increase to all the items. The one that's going up is other revenues, but again, that is because we have the sale of the golf course, then we have ARPA funds that are coming in there, and then a lot of projected revenues or projected grants that are coming through. So a lot of the one-time stable is the same. That is the one that varies due to one-time monies coming in. Go to the next. And then we do the same thing overall, a 3-year comparison, but with our major departments. So we have fire and fleet together because we did switch a few years ago that the fleet department is managed under the fire department. So that's why you see fire and fleet together under that category. So obviously you have your police department, fleet, fire, community development, public works. Increase though, as you can see, our community development, public works. So in 122, we did increase the amount of that we were putting in for repairs and maintenance of public buildings and grounds. There is also the Bryant Felt wall it's being done to be finished up next year. And then also a partial year of having an additional director. We went from a community development director to a community development director and an assistant community development director. The jump again in the final year is the fact that we will have both of those positions filled for the full year. And the main part is it also includes $550,000 to finish the zoning specific and general plan, because those do fall under community development. And there's also another $170,000 in SACOG grants that are also included within that budget. So that is why the increase between community development and public works. The HR budget does have a slight decrease for this next fiscal year. I do want to mention that our workers' comp did go up, or is going up, around $70,000, and our current UAL unfunded liability is going up around $46,000. However, when we did our pension obligation bond and amortization schedule, there was like a little bit of a bell curve. So last year we were paying, the payment's actually dropping in this current year we're going into, and then it's going to start going up. So in fiscal year 23, 24, a lot of fiscal year. It's going to increase around 80,000, and then the year after that, it's going to increase by another 85,000. So the HR part, our budget will continue to increase. This was just the 1 year that we were looking at a small decrease. So that is just the overall comparison of where we're at. The next part we were going to go into was just talking about the general overview on grant, one-time costs, and ongoing costs. The next slide. So as we said, we have several grants that are coming in and out that are past the grants, but I do want to mention these are the ones that are one-time or 2-year grants that we know are coming in this fiscal year. Is we're finishing up our SB2 grant. There's around 11,000 left in that, finishing the housing element. There's no match on that one. We will be using our LEAP grant which is local early action planning grant. And this is for our zoning plan. And we have a $17,000 match on this one. Our REAP is to finish our specific plan. And there's $463,000 left in that grant for this next year. There's no match on that. And then we did receive a 2019 SACOG economic revitalization grant a few years ago. We spent 35,000 of it. There's still 70,000 we spent, 65 to be reimbursed, 5,000 our share that needs to be spent by this December. So we're still working on a project, but right now we're looking at the scope of possible replacing banners where Wayfair signage, other items are going to fit within the scope of this grant. So that will also be spent in this next fiscal year. So that's, another important one to bring up is this is the last year of our SAFER grant for the 3 full-time firefighters. It expires in March 7th or 8th of next year. So we'll be receiving around $54,000 in reimbursement because when we first got the grant, it was we had a 25% match, 75 was SAFER. Now we've switched where the last year it's 75% us, 25% them. So that grant is expiring. Those 3 positions have been fully integrated into the budget, and all the numbers we've given you and all future numbers include these 3 firefighters. So that's how we came up. And then the other ones are our pass-through grants, CalVIP, we have a few cannabis grants. So overall, we have $1.4 million in grants, and we have a $22,000 general fund match for all grants. Okay, so next. So now start going through our proposed one-time expenses. Again, the general plan is coming in. We spent around $38,000 in this current fiscal year on the general plan. We knew that what wasn't spent would be removed into the reserve. And now this is coming back where this is the cost for the remaining portion of that. So that will be a one-time expense. Again, that will be reimbursed through the grant process. Members to attend Cap to Cap in Washington, D.C. next, I believe it will be April or May. I don't know the exact dates. The other part is assigned for Bryant, and this will be offset by revenue that's being brought in by Hard Rock Cafe. Sorry, it's not Hard Rock Cafe, is it? Hard Rock Casino. Sorry, I said the wrong C word there. And then the other one here is in the building department, we have one-time expense for a contracted building inspector. So what is happening with that is we are still in a recruitment for a building inspector. So we have been basically worst case scenario that we would hire a building inspector and have them in place and working by January 1st of 2023. So we would have a contracted building inspector for 9 months. So that would give a 3-month overlap. So if there's any time or there needs to be any cross training, that would be covered. And if not, if that person is hired sooner, then this contracted person would not work for us as long, and then there would be savings there. But we put it in this if we don't get a building inspector right away to make sure that we do have that service covered. We'll go to the next. Okay, some of our other one-time expenses is we will talk about a little bit later on when we talk about ARPA, is we have talked about we have a radio project that we are required to do because of the Department of Justice is requiring that we do all of our radios to be encrypted. This is going to be about a $1.6 million radio project. In that, there's 2 items that we found out if we bought individually and not through a loan process, that it would actually be about half the price if we didn't lease it, if we actually purchased the equipment outright. So the first 2, one of them is a pyramid repeater for the top of engines. And then another one is just the remaining repeater upgrades that we would need for the fire department to do the radio encryption. The other item that we as a proposed one-time expense is a new metal building for apparatus storage. So we currently have an apparatus storage building at the fire department. We do have 2 more apparatuses coming in the next month. Thank you. So in about a month, we have our 2 wildland engines coming. They're actually too long for the building, and they fit into the current building that we have to be able to put all the apparatuses in there. So we've been looking at an extension on it, talking with several contractors. It's actually been harder to get anybody to bid on it, and the prices are coming in quite high. So we're now looking instead of putting in a new metal building, putting the electrical in there, and then we'd be able to actually take some of the equipment out of the current bay and make it easier for them to use the current bay, store the apparatuses that we need to in a building that will actually cover all the apparatuses that we have. And then these are not these are not general, but I did want to point out in the street fund, we were also looking to one-time expenses, do a tow behind compressor for when they go out and use jackhammers and other items like that. And then the Bobcat that we're purchasing for a trailer for the Bobcat. So those are one time. So those total they total $692,765. So these ones are here are proposed ongoing expenses. That is to join the Greater Sacramento Economic Council. And this would be a membership that we would be a part of, similar to SACOG, and it's $4,800 per year. The other one is we would be adding an expense account that we currently do not have in economic development that we labeled meal reimbursements. As we go out, we work with developers. If there is a meal to be purchased, they would be able to purchase under this account. This would be a reimbursable account only, that it would need to be paid for by whatever director or manager is using it. The receipt would come to finance and actually be approved, and we would get a memo with the purpose of that meal. So it would be watched. It would basically get an approval after every meal to make sure that it qualifies for this. We currently do not have this in our current budget. The other part under general debt is we're proposing to lease 5 new police vehicles. So what is this program where we purchased 19 vehicles? We paid that off in September of 2021. So we no longer have that payment in this current year. So we have $180,000 that we're not paying on the current year payment. And so now's the time to actually start rotating the vehicles for the police department. They're all 5 to 6 years old. So we're going to work on a 5-year replacement plan that this year we would sell. Well, actually, we wouldn't sell all 5. We would keep 2 of them, repurpose them, because we have 2005 Tahoes that are being driven that are falling apart for the volunteers. So we would actually repurpose them, use them for the volunteers, and then we would sell 3 of them. And then we would start the replacement plan with every 5 years. Every year we would start another 5 cars so that we're keeping them anywhere from 5 to 7 years. And then the other one that we're proposing is when we were talking about the $1.6 million for radio towers. On another slide, we're going to propose that we take $1 million of ARPA to pay for that. And that what we do is that we finance the other $600,000. And this would be the loan payment for a $600,000 loan for the radios over 5 years at a 3.51% interest rate. That was a quote given to us by Motorola. The caveat with this one is depending on the timing. This payment may or may not come out in this next fiscal year, because normally it would be due the year after you sign the contract. So depending on timing, this payment may be made or it might be actually pushed off until next fiscal year, but we wanted to make sure that you were aware of that project. And then the last part with that is in the fire department is an annual lease for Oregon Peak, which has to do with, again, the radio project. We need to be able to have the new equipment. We need to be able to use their repeater up on Oregon Peak. And I'm not exactly 100% sure where Oregon Peak is at, but that was the information I was given. So with this, these would be ongoing payments of $218,052. Okay, so then next is we have a proposed new personnel for 3 positions. So one of them is we currently have 2 part-time maintenance worker positions. We are having a hard time actually keeping those positions filled because they're very limited term. They only work 960 hours a year. This would actually give us 4 full-time people within the Parks Division and 4 full-time people within the Streets Division. So that cost to go from part-time to full-time would be $43,000. It's around a $60,000 a year job roll-up, and that's assuming a full family plan. But it's offset by the $17,000 that's currently in the budget for a part-time person So we would have one full-time and we would keep one part-time. The other item is we're proposing is another full-time records clerk. This is due to, and if I may have to have Chief Sachs if you have more questions on it, but NAPERS and Cybers, there's a lot of reporting that is being done that cannot actually be done by all the current staff, the requirements that have come out. Again, it would be better if you want to know the exact reason of all the reporters. When we say it's a cost absorbed by savings, is actually the police chief has worked very hard to look at not actually increasing his budget with this. So there's a proposal that there's a part-time person doing this job, but that would be absorbed into the full-time budget. We also have, there was some rearranging because there's savings with the animal control that is not being used for sheltering services because that program is doing very well. So we would basically take the money that we had budgeted for that program that's no longer needed, and that would also go towards this. Plus, we also have the other account that I was telling you about, our special fund law enforcement fund that we get every year, is that we would supplement the remaining $26,000 to cover by this account from this other account that can only be used for frontline law enforcement. So there would be no additional cost to their overall budget to take on an additional records clerk. And then last, we're also talking about a public works director. So on this, a total cost, this is a roll-up cost approximately, is around $154,000. It is split right now, 25% comes out of the general fund. The street fund is 40% and enterprise fund is 35%. So this position would only be an impact of just under $40,000 to the general fund to hire a public works director. Okay, next slide. So that is all the proposed. I just want to go over a few projects that we have. On the enterprise capital projects, as we are looking at 2 projects this year. There are 2 sewer main repairs. We did, when we refunded the sewer bond last year, we received, or we have $3 million in project funds we could use. In this current year, we're proposing around $500,000 for 2 repair projects, one on Greenlee Street and another one on Aldridge Drive. One of them is running through the street, and the other one is running through backyards. So 2 different projects that we've identified that will be paid out of the capital fund. I have to do next slide. Let me press the button. Hopefully I hit the right one. Oh, okay, good, got it. Okay, so here is our ARPA overview. So let me turn to that page. So again, with ARPA, which is the American Rescue Plan Act, the city of Marysville was set to receive, the exact amount is $3,078,480. And we received that in 2 payments. So we have received the first $1.5 million that received in September of 2021, and we're to receive the other $1.5 million in September of this current fiscal year. So last month, the city, we filed our first annual use report. And with that, we selected that our eligible use for the city is going to be revenue loss. With that, they finally came out with the new rules. Instead of trying to calculate what loss, they're allowing cities to assume that we had up to $10 million in revenue loss. And we took that election so that way we do not have to prove to the government any kind of calculations or any numbers of revenue loss that we may or may not have received. With that, though, we still have to report to them on a yearly basis of what projects we're doing and let them know how much. We do have to, the funds have to be obligated by December 31st of 2024, and they have to be expended by December 31st of 2026. So with that in mind, this is what we have proposed right now for the current fiscal year. We have one column for 22-23, which is the 1.95 million for current year. We have what we proposed for the fiscal year 23-24, and then that will still leave another $478,000 to be used for other projects or other allocations in the fiscal year after that. So it gives us some flexibility. So with that $1.6 million project, we were proposing that we use $1 million of that to pay for the digital encryption. When we talk about the 22nd Street reconstruction, the $200,000 in this fiscal year would be for the engineering of that project. the remaining, we would use 550,000 for the construction of it, and the remaining portion of that would actually come from SB1 funds that we would have built up through the end of 23, 24 to be able to put the remaining 7 to 9,000 or 900,000 into that project to actually do the rehab project. So we'd be using SB1 and ARPA funding. We're also talking about some deferred maintenance on City Hall. HVAC systems have been breaking. We just actually went through a week with portables in the building. With that, we do have some roof replacements because we have leaking, and then paint and windows of this building. The other part is we are currently in a Gavin Park playground grant right now. We would like to actually enhance the equipment that's currently in that park and put 50,000 towards it to get more enhanced and better playground equipment with that project. We also have a retaining wall at Bryant Park that was discovered when we started putting in the new wall that needs to be put in. So it would be 100,000 for that. And then 100,000 this year and next fiscal year for economic development marketing grants for small businesses. So this way we're helping businesses. We're working with parks and outdoors. We're working on some of our deferred maintenance. We're getting streets in there, and we're helping with a major public safety component. So that was our overall plan for ARPA funding with still some money remaining to be allocated. So our next slide. So pretty much this brings us to what we're going to do to plan for the future, things we need to keep in mind. Because again, costs are rising. There's still a potential loss for revenue, not knowing where the economy is going. And we still have the limit to growth. So we do have Measure C coming up that expires in 2026. We do have some money in the economic development budget in this next fiscal year to start on marketing studies and working on how we're going to renew this. Again, we need to start working on our aging infrastructure, our roads, our city hall facilities. As you all know, we are in labor negotiations, so we still have to continue to look at salaries and benefits. There is a challenge because to maintain we have to try to get close to maintain market rate salaries so we can keep our staff here. And then again, we'll just keep on looking at other ways for cost recovery, master fee schedule, other things we can do to actually bring more revenue into the city. Next. So our overall plan for the future is, again, we're going to keep looking for economic sources through economic opportunities to bring more revenue in the city. We continue to monitor our sales tax, how the cannabis market is doing, and our other revenue. We'll be updating the 5-year financial model with new data with these figures once the budget is adopted. We will be updating that model. Keep on looking at our general fund reserves to watch that. And then again, we're going to keep on looking for opportunities to reduce our overall expenses and to improve our efficiencies within the city. Our next steps, and as the mayor said, our next steps is June 7th is we'll have our second meeting. June 21st, hopefully, will be where we adopt it. And if it's not adopted on that day, we would hold a tentative meeting on June 28th to be able to adopt it. And then our last slide is just, is there any questions or discussions on that? I was trying to keep it fairly brief, but there was a lot of information to be able to present to council tonight.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, John. I did have a question. I'm sorry, Jennifer. You can do it from right there. I didn't understand with the public work director salary. We haven't paid for a director for about a year now, almost, or half a year, I guess.
That is correct, but because of that, we've used consultants to be able to supplement. Actually, City Manager has been doing a lot of that work, and then we've been relying more heavily on MHM to help us with a lot of the engineering aspects.
So we actually been spending more than what salary would have been?
No, it's actually a little bit less, but not a huge savings on that. Because when you pay a contractor, normally what happens is you may pay them the same amount of salary, but you're getting, I would say, half the work. They're working half the time. Okay. Because it's almost double of what an employee would cost.
On the police record clerk, you said that the cost would be absorbed, but what you mentioned was half of it would be out of a part-time person. So where's the other half coming from?
So it would be, we would reduce the part-time help in the dispatch budget because it would be from part-time to full-time, so that's 10,000. We would, the reduction in the sheltering services is another 10,000.
The what?
The sheltering services that we pay the county to take in the animals, that has actually been so successful that what we used to budget for that, we no longer need. And so we're able to actually reduce that overall budget by 10,000. And we would take that savings that we've spent on a yearly basis. Another part of that is we have a vehicle abatement. We have a vehicle abatement fund that we can only spend on abatement purposes. So we would use actually 10,000 of that towards a code enforcement officer, which would free up $10,000 of their salaries to be able to go towards a records clerk.
Okay.
And then the remaining 26,000 would come from the SLESF fund that can only be used for law enforcement. Right now, we transfer 100,000 a year out of that. We would transfer 126,000. We have the projections, and we can still sustain that, pulling out that amount for at least 5 years. But I haven't done the projections past that. Okay. But there's more than enough to sustain the extra 26,000 coming out.
Last question that I've got is, you're talking about this metal building that we're putting over at Public Works.
Fire department.
Pardon me?
It'd be fire department.
I'm sorry. That's
okay.
Fire department. Is that a full? When I saw the price of it, I was surprised. Is that the foundation, a new foundation, or is that a metal building that's going over something?
It's
existing.
It's replacing the existing metal building with a newer, wider metal building to fit them in, and it's a prefab building. We looked at extending the building, and so far what fire staff has found is nobody, first of all, is that interested in bidding out an extension, and the price is very high for doing that. It's likely going to be cheaper just to put in the prefab full structure.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Okay, we'll move to the community and consent calendar forum. Individuals wishing to address the City Council concerning consent calendar items or on matters not already on the agenda are invited to make oral comments up to 3 minutes. If you'd like to comment and you are attending this meeting in person, please complete a speaker's card and return it to the city clerk. When called upon, please go to the podium to address the council. If you are participating via Zoom and you would like to speak, please raise your hand via Zoom. When called upon by the city clerk or mayor, you may be unmuted and you can address the city council. Whether you are here in person or attending via Zoom, when called upon, please give your name clearly for audio recording. You are requested to address your comments to the council and not to the audience. By state law, the council is not permitted to undertake any action or discussion on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. If you have any documentation that you would like to be distributed to council, please mail it to the clerk, city clerk, 526 C Street, Marysville, California, 95901. And normally I look over and say, Madam Clerk, do we have anyone wishing to address the council? And Madam Clerk is out of the room, so we're going to just be delayed for half a second.
So I do have 2 speaker cards. So the first one be for Leon Alavantes, and I apologize if I said a name wrong. Okay, so our first speaker will be Tara. How do you say your last name? Gautier. Oh, and
welcome.
Hello?
Perfect.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council members and city staff. I just wanted to tell you that we're fairly new to the city of Marysville. My partner, Leon Alavantes, who I'm sitting with, purchased a building that used to be the old Jay's Department Store at 520 D Street. And I just wanted to let you know that all our interactions with city staff and police department, fire marshal, and our neighbors have been very welcoming and helpful. And I just wanted to thank you for that welcome to the city.
You are so kind. And I was delivered before the meeting began. I was delivered some cookies for the council in appreciation. And I'm going to we need to share with the staff because the staff is the people you really want to thank.
Well, thank you. It's just a small token, and I'm sorry there aren't any more. Maybe I can bring more to the planning committee meetings or the general plan meeting.
It's great. And you have a new business there? Is that what you're doing?
Leon Elevantes can tell you more about it, but it's going to be a display of his personal collection in a museum format, and also an art gallery, which I will oversee at that building.
Thank you.
We also have in the future, possibly, well, yes, in the future, a pipe organ, which we're assembling from the old Strand Theater in San Francisco, which is now in parts all over the building.
What fun. Well, look forward to seeing it all. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank
Sir,
you.
You're next. And by the way, not only did we get cookies, and they are beautiful, we got the recipe. How grand is that? Thank you so very much.
Hi, my name is Leon Olevantis, and again, thank you very much for the welcome to the city. We have worked with the building department, great experience. We, very much appreciative with the way everything, has gone so far. The fire department would like to thank you very much for working with us and addressing all the issues that needed to be resolved. The police department, and I'm going to be getting to that chapter a little later in my discussion. But as Tara mentioned, the purpose of what we're doing is a museum. It's a museum of early radios, early televisions, automatic mechanical music instruments, and the pipe organ being one of them, but a whole bunch of other instruments that you cannot really find anywhere near the area. You either have to go to the Bay Area or you have to go down to LA to find an exhibition like that. We plan to have it's going to be a non-profit, it's going to be open to the public, and we're going to have some sales to generate some income and some sales tax for the city. So that's what we're doing, and we're doing it out of we're not planning to make really any money, but it's educational for the youngest generation, just to learn how it all started. And we didn't have cell phones, back in the early 1900s. We had to crank those phonographs, and then the radios came along, and we had to have those tube radios. So that's kind of what we are doing, and everyone that stopped by, they are very excited about what we're doing, and there's hundreds of radios already and instruments inside the building. So drop by and say hello whenever you want. We're there most of the time. The door is locked, but just knock on the door. We'll be more than willing to give you a tour. So what I would like to address is safety issues in the downtown area. I'm sure I'm not saying anything you don't already know. We're aware of the homeless population. Most of them seem to be safe and harmless. Some of them sometimes, have arguments, and, we never felt unsafe. However, we did have one incident a few weeks ago where we had our pickup parked in front of the building with an enclosed U-Haul trailer behind it. It got stolen overnight. That's not okay. We would like to thank the PD with the way they handled the report. They immediately filed it online, and actually the pickup was recovered within a few hours, obviously with a lot of damage. Within 2 weeks, the business next door, which is the pawn shop, they were hit. The front window was broken. A bike was removed, and actually they spent quite a bit of time inside the building at about 4 a.m. That's not okay. So this is most likely organized crime. And I know that the police department is short-staffed, so I'm not looking for a solution today or tomorrow, but something that we need to be looking forward, down the road and planning to improve what has already been happening in the last few years. That crime has been going down, and I read the history. We're new to the area, but everything is online. We spend a lot of time doing our research before we invested in purchasing the building. So that's basically what I would like to request, that further down the road, we need to address the safety of the businesses downtown, and having those break-ins or those crimes is not okay. That's we can all work together to look forward on how to address those issues.
Thank you. You are blessing our city with a new attraction, and I hope it is successful beyond your wildest dreams. The good news is the police department is almost just across the street from you.
It takes guts to do what they did. That's basically it. Yes.
And we take great interest in preserving the peace for all of our residents and all of D Street. Thank you so very much for your presentation.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
We will enjoy these. I might share them with somebody. Oh boy. Okay, Madam Clerk, any other comments, questions, presentations?
Not right now.
Okay, we now move to the consent calendar. All matters on the consent agenda are considered routine and therefore approved by one motion, unless a council member or the city manager first requests that a matter be removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion and action. What is the will of the council?
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion approved. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, we now move to the discussion and action calendar. All matters in this section of the agenda are discussed and will be acted on individually. Members of the public may request to speak on any of these items for up to 3 minutes when called upon for public comment. If you would like to comment and you're attending the meeting in person, please complete a speaker's card and return it to the city clerk. When called upon, go to the podium to address the council. If you are participating via Zoom and would like to speak, please raise your hand via Zoom. When you're called on by the city clerk, you'll be unmuted and you can address the council, whether you're here in person or attending via Zoom. When called upon, please give your name clearly for audio recording. If you have any documentation you'd like to be distributed to council, please mail it to the city clerk at 526 C Street, Marysville, California, 95901. First item, town hall meetings. Recommendation: discuss the basis of town hall meetings, establish a date of the first meeting and what is expected to be an outcome of these meetings. And I see that Councilman Dominic Belza is the contact on this. Did you want to present this, Councilman Belza?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate that. You referenced, Mr. Mayor, a lot of communication that we received from our campaign trails in this last election. And one of those topics that I received a lot of was communication and transparency with councils in general. The public's felt that there's been a disconnect between City Hall and themselves in regards to certain topics in the city that they have concerns about. So that's kind of the foundation of why to bring it up, is to hopefully create an opportunity where the council and the public can or more the council can hear what the public has to say on certain topics in a little bit more of a casual format, such as a town hall type meeting. So I've had a little bit of discussion with Jim, our city manager, and Nicole, and talking a little bit about the format of this. And we've gotten some counsel from Brant in regards to the Brown Act and the format of how a town hall has to go, which is permissible, would have to be obviously noticed and agendized. However, there can't be any action taken out of a town hall meeting. Really, the idea is that a topic is picked. What I think would be a good topic for a first town hall meeting would be a traffic and roads discussion, where the community can come and can share with all 5 council members at the same time what their concerns are and what their thoughts are, ideas, possible solutions, et cetera, and the whole council can hear what the community has to say in its totality, and not just isolated and not just limited to a very short, brief amount of time. And so in that type of format, I thought it would behoove us to have a discussion about it and hopefully move this forward. So,
what are the venues you have in mind?
Well, some of our key topics in town to talk about, and I'll reference back to, we did have a meeting similar to this format regarding Ellis Lake. It was really pertaining to a grant, but it was a very successful format where the public got to engage in what they wanted to see happen with,
so that meeting was near the lake.
What's that? Yeah, about the ring neck. We were all involved and witnessed how that went. So, we've got a number of different items and issues that are the hot topics in Marysville, right? Our traffic and our roads are a hot topic. Ellis Lake's another one. We're talking about blighted buildings.
Where would you hold these?
I think for the functionality of the first one, it would probably suffice to hold here. It would be easy. We've got the ability and the technology to be able to handle it. In the future, possibly in a public park, weather permitting, something along those lines. I think it would depend on the topic and what it was, right?
Time of day.
Hard to say, and that's something for all of us to kind of talk about. I see it similar. We could either do it on Saturdays and a weekend. And I'm not talking about every week having a town hall meeting. I mean, we're talking about maybe 2, 3, 4 a year tops. So at least in what I see, we could either do it on a weekend on a Saturday or do it in an evening and an off week from a council meeting. Many times in a council meeting, we're really limited with time. Like this, for example, tonight, our closed session overlapped by a half an hour, and we've got a loaded agenda, and we'll probably be in here pretty late tonight. But that doesn't give a lot of room and opportunity to really hear what the public has to say about the topic. And my real hope out of this is that it can help progress topics and items forward, that we can all hear the same concern from the general public, that it's not an isolated conversation in a one-on-one, that it's a unified conversation between the council and the general public on a particular topic.
Sure. I like the idea. I just with some of the logistics that I'm trying to figure out there, because of the fact that legally, if we get more than 2 of us together, we cannot have a discussion. We can have a discussion. We cannot have totality of finalization of the conversation. Is that correct, Council? That we cannot come to a resolution.
You could schedule a town hall as a workshop.
Sure.
So there's not going to be a vote on anything, but at the same time, then all 5 of you could express your feelings collectively, because it is a council meeting.
Sure. Okay. Because it's going to be
so in the workshop, city hall, town hall, and you could have everyone from the audience who wanted to deal on the topic come up, and so that way you could not have that problem. Now, if you had a town hall meeting with 2 of you, then I would discourage the other 3 from attending and saying anything. I suppose they could attend.
Well, just a minute. If it's agendized, I mean, if it's noticed,
should be able to.
Then all 5 should be able to be there, shouldn't they?
I said I would, if it's agenda as a city council meeting, then all 5 can be there. If you, sometimes there are.
But it would not have an action item, so it'd just be pure discussion.
And you could even have an action item as long as it's a council meeting. So you could even take action on something if you so desired. But
Pardon me, were you imagining all 5?
No, so what was relayed back to me was that in the context of the town hall meeting, you could schedule a town hall meeting. All 5 council members could be there at the meeting. However, the council would be unpermitted to take any action on the discussion topic.
That's correct, unless you're going to make it a real council meeting, and then you could take
right.
action.
And I'm not proposing adding another council meeting to our agenda.
So basically, we notice it, which means all 5 of us can be there.
Correct.
And the only thing on the agenda is a discussion.
On a particular topic.
Workshop on roads and parks and traffic, and whatever it is. And the mayor would call the meeting to order, and people who was on an off week, an off Tuesday, everyone who had a desire to talk about that would come, and you wouldn't have to have a 3-minute timer. If you wanted to have more than 3 minutes, they could have unlimited time, subject to reasonableness.
Correct.
And then the council could all kick around whatever they heard.
Yeah, there should be a sunset on the meeting, a reasonable time, an hour, hour and a half, whatever that may be.
If I may, finish real quick. I mean, again, liking the idea, and I see other people are clinking in here, so I'll be short. How are we going to be able to decide the subject matter of discussion? Is that going to become something that's going to be kind of like social media, go through the clerk, go through a point person, the mayor? What's the thoughts on that?
I would propose that maybe staff contact us all individually, and we give the priority topics, and then staff can identify what the majority priority topics, like for example, if all 5 of us respond back that streets and traffic are a top issue, then that becomes the top of the list. And if downtown business is another issue, then that can be a later on town hall meeting.
But the original born idea is to 1 subject, 2 subjects per meeting, because I like the idea. I mean, they're going to be lengthy.
No more than 2. And I would say, just like with roads and traffic, they ought to be related, economic development and downtown businesses or something along those lines, right? Roads and traffic. So
yeah, that's my questions. Thank you.
If I might, to count legal counsel, would the town halls allow for direction to staff? Yes. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would call it a workshop, town hall workshop on the topic of, and the agenda would have public input, council discussion, and if desired, direction to staff on topic XYZ. And then that direction might be prepare and bring something to a regular council meeting. Probably. Okay. And then the only other question I had was if we might consider selecting the topic or topics in a regular council meeting based on some recommendations from staff or a council member. That way we could line that up ahead of time.
I have a suggestion. If we can go this far, let's pick the topic for the first one, date undetermined yet. And that I think traffic and roads are a very important topic. It will gather a significant interest through the community. And we could maybe have in the park, there's not that many parks with a lot of big shade trees now, and it's getting that time of year. Please.
Just a question for council. That if we were to have a meeting in a park setting, do we have to have the technology there because we offer both in person and Zoom?
The Zoom that you do is totally gratuitous. It's a courtesy to the public. And so the council members have to attend in person.
Right.
If the Zoom quits, we keep going. If we were doing it under the emergency order and the Zoom quit, we have to stop the meeting.
I see.
So all the Zooms we have, if somebody drops off, their phone goes dead, we don't stop the meeting, we keep going.
So I tend to agree. If we're going to have a topic on the lake, let's meet at Ellis Lake. If we're going to have a topic on the parks, let's meet at one of the parks.
Just a technological / legal question. Will the meeting need to be recorded? You should do everything that you do by way of keeping minutes as you do in a regular meeting. Although I'm not aware of a requirement as I'm looking at the camera that we record a video record or audio record a meeting, and we could have action minutes. Okay. I'm looking at our clerk, and I'm sure she would appreciate some type of recording rather than having to take extensive notes.
Well,
it could be an audio recording.
Minutes are not.
To the chair.
If it's not
Please.
overly burdensome, perhaps not heavy.
Mr. Vice Mayor.
I like the idea. I think we should have multiple subjects. Whether we get through 2 subjects, we may or may not. I think we should put a time limit. I've been to similar events like this that they were not held here because this was too much of a formal interaction. But one was at McKinney School in their auditorium where you could sit in the stadiums or in the seats, and then we would sit out on the floor. It's air conditioned if we're going to do any of these in the summertime. I'm not big necessarily on the fact that if we're going to do it about the lake, we need to be at the lake. I think we need to be in a comfortable spot where we can all not sitting there sweating trying to talk to each other, or freezing if it goes through the winter. So I would suggest we do it in a place. And I also think that we should consider if we're going to do, let's say 3 or 4 a year, we set one in East Marysville, one in West Marysville, maybe one located more downtown, and see what we draw out of that.
A quick thought. It's an election year. And would a candidate who's not already on the council feel prejudiced? Just thinking out loud, Mr. City Attorney.
Well, they could come to the meeting.
Yeah, I guess.
And they could express their wisdom and hope that they got a soundbite out of it. Or you could wait until November 10th.
No, I think if we had one reasonably soon, but I wouldn't pack anything too close to the election. Have one. You could probably might be able to get 1 or 2 between now and.
I think reasonably, just to start out, we can change the format however we want to as things go. Maybe there's something that works well and something that doesn't work well that we need to change. But if we start out just for the sake of planning and for staff, maybe 1 a quarter, 1 every 3 months. And then the winter quarter, or the 4th quarter, we can do it after November 4th, after Election Day. And I agree. I don't really care a whole lot about the weeds and about where we do it, how we go about doing it. The whole goal for me is the opportunity to be able to have the general public and all of us hear the same thing and communicated the same thing. So,
Mr. City Attorney, can we go so far as to define the topics for the first meeting and set a framework for dates? It could be some period.
Yeah, you have a sufficient notice in your agenda to do that.
Okay. Councilman Bells, why don't you go ahead and propose topics and a potential date or range of dates?
So I would propose, what did we, just really quick, Madam Clerk, what was the first date that we were looking at? Do you recall from our conversation?
The initial request listed May 24th.
It might be a little soon from now to be able to do it, but we could do the second week of June possibly.
Can I interrupt on that just for a second? I think that we ought to maybe have a staff pick some dates or send out something that we all can commit to so we can all be there.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to pick a date and everybody.
We can certainly do that.
I would make this.
We can certainly do that.
I think that would
I would make this
give us all a
proposal.
better opportunity to be there.
Perhaps a month range.
Sure.
Yeah.
I would make this proposal that we let staff give us 2 or 3 different dates to pick from, but that the first topic be traffic and roads to discuss, and that our first town hall meeting will be before July 1st. So it falls in the second quarter, and staff can give us a reasonable 3 different dates to go with.
One last.
Are you framing
one
that
last
as a
question?
motion?
One last question. If I guess this is for you, Grant. If a subject was to come up that was not put on an agenda for discussion, can we discuss it, or we have to just say?
We would allow for, just like we do on every agenda,
Okay.
someone to have a jurisdictional comment as long as it's within the subject matter. But once you got into the actual meeting itself, we're now in the workshop on streets and roads, and someone wants to come up and talk about, promoting business on D Street. You'd say, no, I'm sorry, you are out of order. And so you give the general comments and then get out of the way, you get into the workshop, and you're going to keep them on track.
Thank you. Back to you, Councilman Belson. Would you like to frame that as a motion?
I don't know if I can frame it as a motion, but I could ask for
I think the motion was something along the lines of a town hall meeting, traffic and roads, to be held sometime between now and July 1st, before July 1st, on a date to be determined and notice to the public.
Correct.
That's the motion. Did you have a question, Councilman Goodrich?
Yeah, I have. It's nice to see a lot of work has gone into this. This is great. The venue for this should be City Hall, and it should take place during the week nights. Thank you.
Well, that can be determined. So did I properly frame your motion? We have the motions on the table from Councilman Belza.
I second that.
We have a motion and second. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Pardon me.
I would just ask that we also be directed to look for a venue and try and come up with a venue such as a school or City Hall or whatever.
That's why he's paid the big bucks. Yes, we need a place and have that determined. We'll include that in the motion. The motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we did it. Good idea, Councilman Belson. Okay, let's see. We scratched item 10. We're down to item number 11.
8 and 9 are in there.
What did I read? Oh, I skipped a page. Thank you very much. Let's see an over and under on the meeting. Anyway, let's see.
Mr. Mayor, do you want to take a little break?
Councilman Bells has asked for a short break. We'll have a short break. 5 minutes. And
yeah, pass cookies over.
Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com.
Here. I just want to let you know, I've never gotten over those street lights out there. And I ask him every, couple of weeks, go, hey man, where's his lights? He says he's working on it right now, which since, see him out there? Well, I guess we're trying to get some more LED lights, and so we're going to get some out there.
Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com.
Yo, 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 let's get it going. Where's everybody? This is not a drill. This is not a drill. Actually, these breaks are pretty good. Get social, have a little mini town hall. Well, you know, I think these breaks are nice because we kind of had a mini town hall here and there throughout the room. We are back in session. Thank you. And we are, if I'm correct, back on item number 8 on the agenda. And the item 8 reads, approve facilities use agreement for Bryant Field located at 1431 C Street, Marysville. Recommendation, pass a motion to approve the facilities use agreement between the City of Marysville and YCM Baseball Group LLC for Bryant Field for the 2022 baseball season. And the contact on that and the presenter is Mr. Dan Flores, Community Development Director. Mr. Flores, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Before I get started, could we give Tara and Leon a round of applause for business here right here in downtown Marysville? I'm bringing their new venture to us. Welcome you all. Thank you. It's going to be great to see their venture as it opens up in downtown Marysville. Pretty exciting. So before you, we have a recommendation to pass a motion to approve the facilities use agreement between the City of Marysville and the YCM Baseball Group for Bryant Field for the 2022 baseball season, which is, by the way, just a short time away, like just a couple of weeks, actually, a few weeks away. So it starts on June 1st. I want to thank City Manager Jim Shad and City Councilman Buttacavoli and City Councilman Belza for working on this arrangement so that we could come to this agreement finally. It's not where we want to be 100%, but we've come to at least an agreement for this season, and we're looking forward to watching some baseball again right here in Marysville. It's also great to see how Bryant Field is coming along. I was there today standing in the grass that's turning green, and it looks like baseball season's coming around the corner, and that's just exciting to see. So a little bit of background on it. In the spring of 2021, the city entered into a one-year lease agreement with Bryant Field with the YCM Baseball Group, the owners of the Yuba City Gold Sox team. The onset of COVID-19 pandemic stalled the negotiations for a multi-year summer lease agreement for Bryant Field, and the parties agreed that in light of that pandemic, they would have just a one-year agreement from there. That 1 year obviously expired at the end of last year. The idea was to negotiate potentially a multi-year agreement. And what we've come up with at this point, though, is entering the 22 season with another 1 year agreement at this point. So the city staff and baseball group, we've negotiated and concluded with this single year lease agreement that are similar to the prior terms of the prior year with a $3,000 fee for the season. And there's a correction I would like to make on this report. If you look at under discussion and analysis, the actual season goes now from June 1st, 2022 to July 31st, 2022. This agreement has been reviewed by legal counsel, and the fiscal analysis for it is that the proposed lease agreement would increase the general fund by $3,000. The agreement is attached. If there are any specific questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Any questions from council? I have one.
Yes, sir.
I see this is for the exclusive use. It would be on short notice, it would be difficult to schedule an alternate activity there. But I am informed by a member of former member of one of the most successful bands ever to come out of the Marysville Yuba City area, Tijuana Taxi.
Oh yeah, great band.
And he is working with another group, and he and other groups like his are looking for venues to have concerts, for-profit concerts. And the idea would be to place a stage out about second base, fill up the stands, put some seating out in the infield and what have you, and have a sizable concert venue. Again, it'd be difficult to do that again this year, but are you suggesting this would be a model agreement for successive years, or could something be worked out where it could be non-exclusive?
So first of all, this is a 1-year agreement. And secondly, I'd call your attention to section 2, item 7, which is community events. And so in the agreement, we actually have language which allows for community events to occur with the proper notice. And then also that we would make sure that those things are cleaned up as well.
I read the sentence that said exclusive use. And
It's there, but it's inconsistent.
It's inconsistent.
Inconsistent. Okay, that makes sense.
That's fine then. That's fine.
Okay, we can fix that language. We'll make sure to do that. Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
But yeah, I would encourage other events to occur. And I would also note that that the city manager, Jim Shad, and we worked with the Little League today, and the Marysville Little League are going to hold their first game at Bryant Field tomorrow. So it'd be great for all of us to attend that game and watch. Actually, we're going to be in a planning meeting, so you won't be able to do that, everybody. But tomorrow they're going to have a game. They're going to have 4 games total, and it'll be at times when they're not, the Gold Sox are not playing. So we're excited to have them and welcome them tomorrow.
Again, it would be, once the new fence is completely up, and that's progressing this year, and it'll be done sometime this year.
Yes.
And when will the fenceless portion of the fence be up?
I'll defer to, I'm going to defer to the city manager on that. He has the details.
Our corrugated steel first shipment is likely to be here tomorrow, and they will start installing that, moving from center field out towards right field. I imagine this week, as they continue to paint the framework, they'll be able to install more. So I would imagine within the next couple of weeks, it'll all be up.
And when, do I understand correctly that the left field fence will be as it is now and be installed later?
After the Gold Sox season, yeah.
After the season. Well, it's a wonderful venue, and the casino is proving that this area is a draw, can be a draw for entertainment. Not only the amphitheater, which is located adjacent, and then I don't know if they've completed construction yet. Have they completed construction on their 2,500 person indoor theater?
It's just about complete, and I know they're going to have their first event coming up on May 26th.
And as I recall, the cheapest ticket for that is several $100s. And so there's a market, and we have a venue.
Yes, we do.
And it's a very attractive venue. I don't know how parking would work, but it's worthy of some study and thought as we go forward. Thank you.
For sure.
Chair?
Yes. I'm not the chair.
So, sorry, you're not the chair, but
sorry.
You mentioned that Little League's playing at Bryant Field tomorrow, or Earl Yorton?
Bryant Field tomorrow.
Oh.
Yes.
Seniors.
Seniors. Oh, you're
Senior
Little
League.
League. Which one?
Oh yeah, seniors. Yes, right.
Big kids.
So he's throwing it at Bryant Field. That's what we're trying to figure out.
Yeah.
So, all right. So it's Bryant Field tomorrow. Thank you. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay.
Just a comment on the fence with a question about the left field fence. The biggest problem we ran into over there was there's no retaining wall on that side, which we didn't know until the fence started to come down. That was, I believe you have $100,000 in the budget to put that retaining wall in, and we're gonna be right in that neighborhood. And then we can go in and finish that portion of this. So because the footings alone are gonna take a month to do, it'll be after the season. So
One more thing through the chair. The games start what time?
The games there's a schedule that's on the web.
The Little League games start at 6.
Yeah, the Little League games tomorrow at 6. Yes.
There you go.
If Councilmember Belza needs to warm up ahead of time, they'll be out there around 5.
My question is, do they have hot dogs there?
Mr. Mayor, if I might too, I'd like to give compliments to the Public Works team. They've done a really great job out there. They're hardworking. I went out a couple of months ago when I first started here. It's night and day. I mean, the place is looking a lot better. There's still more to do, but the work that they put into it's a tremendous job. So I'd like to give them some kudos from the Community Development Department.
They deserve that compliment, and not only hardworking, they're really nice people.
Yes.
Real quick question. The murals on the outside portion of the fence, someone had expressed, I think the right field fence came down and we lost those murals. Is that correct?
Correct.
I know there's, have people been in touch with you with respect
We've
to
had
those?
at least 2 people interested in the murals on the fence, and I'm concerned that they may not hold up, but I've spoken with them, and if they can remove those intact, they're more than welcome to them when we get to that point.
Okay. Let's, if more proposals come in, there may be some enduring use for those, who knows? I've been informed by one of the people interested that those are actually regarded as classic artworks and worth something.
The only challenge is that they're crumbling, so getting them down intact is going to be the fun part.
There you go. Okay, let's see. Any further questions or discussion? Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Very quickly, I won't make a question, it'll be a comment. Councilman Belza and Vice Mayor Buttacavoli, I know they worked very hard on this in addition to Director. Oh, just a minute. As usual, I've forgotten to step. Madam Clerk, do we have any public input on this topic?
Not on this topic. Thank you, Mayor.
Check that box. Anyway, Director Flores and staff have worked very hard on this, but I know that the Parks Committee, Councilman Bells and Vice Mayor Buttacavoli also worked very hard on this. And I just wanted to express my appreciation. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous, Madam Clerk.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, item number 9. Approving SB1 Road Maintenance and Rehabilitation Project List for 2022-23. Pass a motion to approve the Road Maintenance and Rehabilitation Proposed Project List for the fiscal year 2022-23 to be submitted to the California Transportation Commission. Finance Director, Madam Jennifer Stachinsky, please. Please proceed.
So good evening, Mayor and Council. So I am here tonight just to basically introduce John Mallon. Every year on a yearly basis, to be able to receive SB1 funds for the city of Marysville, we are required to produce a list of projects and a resolution to be uploaded so that we can continue to receive those funds. The city has been working with John Mallon, our city engineer, and he'll be the one coming forth, giving the presentation and any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Always good to see you, sir. What do you got?
Yeah, as Jim mentioned, this list is maintained for the SB1 funds that we receive each year at the city.
Can you describe what SB1 funds are for those of us who are not as well informed?
Well, that would have been a better Jen question, but basically it's additional
Just
funds.
a moment. I have the man right here. Mr. City Manager.
So SB1 funds are state funds that are collected or are funded through gas tax, and each municipality is given or apportioned a certain amount every year, of which Marysville gets. We get roughly $250,000 a year, if I'm correct.
That is correct.
And we typically hold on to those for a couple of years to allow them to build up in order to complete a fairly large street project.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and the SB1 is the additional gas tax that was enacted, and these are the funds that are set aside from that additional gas tax, which I don't think it has a sunset on it, does it?
I am not aware of a sunset.
Yeah.
Not in California.
No, tax only goes one way. So what it is since the SB1 was first passed and we developed a list, we've been basically keeping projects on that list and updating accordingly over the past 5 years. We've completed some work. Most recently, the work was done on B Street, First Street, and F Street. It was a designated SB1 project. We didn't have an additional project this year because we have Fifth Street going on, and we didn't want to. We weren't sure where we were going to come out with funds on that job, so we were going to leave some room in case we do need some funding from SB1 for that. But under the direction of input from everybody, we've added a few projects to the list this year. The project list consists of, I guess I don't have a display here, of two types of projects. We have ones that are similar to what we've done on B Street, First, and F, where it's just a simple overlay of the street. So we do grinding and overlay, maybe putting in pavement reinforcement fabric. We have some streets that actually we may even be looking at doing seal coating. So it's more of a maintenance to defer future improvements of the road. And then we have on the other end of the spectrum, we have streets that are basically to the point where they're going to need to be pulverized and reconstructed. Kind of the one of the newer ones on the, well, I guess it's not the newest one on the list, but we have 22nd Street, which has kind of been the top of the list because it's one of our highest used roads that's in the poorest condition. And that's what I know. There's a couple different funding sources for the ARPA funds that Jen had shown on there that the SB1 funds would be the supplement the completion of the project within the scope that we're looking at.
Good, Chair, for me. So you're saying the projects are, we've all kind of gone through the funding there and I appreciate that. Are these shovel ready or are these still in the planning stage? I see you got,
No, basically you put them on the list for the potential to use funds on these projects within this fiscal year. And that's the reason why they've kind of shifted along as we've gone. It's more of a wish list than a steady commitment.
Okay.
Under the guidelines of the SB1, you can also add projects to the list during the year. It's just that you have to have a maintained list as part of your.
So this is you creating a list that taken from direction from council, and I like it. I move to approve.
All right. Your presentation has been met agreeably. Let's see. We need public comment.
You're right.
Do we have any public comment on the matter, Madam Clerk?
Not for this item, Mayor.
My only comment is I want the police to do something about loud motorcycles. Anyway, let's see. That was off the point, wasn't it? Let's see. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Yes, I second the motion.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Unanimous, Madam Clerk.
Thanks for your work.
Thank you. Sir, your recommendations obviously carry a lot of weight. Thank you very much. Okay. Now we're at item number 11. We're skipping 10 today. It's been eliminated as previously mentioned. Item number 11, intergovernmental agency agreement. Is this one we're on here? Okay. Between the City of Marysville and Habitat for Humanity. Recommendation: pass a motion to adopt appropriately numbered resolution. A resolution approving an intergovernmental agency agreement between the City of Marysville and Habitat for Humanity for housing consultant services by determining it is in the best interest of the city to suspend competitive bidding for these services as authorized in Municipal Code Section 2.76.120 1A2 and authorize the city manager or designee to execute the agreement on behalf of the city. And I'm very curious what that all means, Director Flores.
Well, I won't repeat. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I won't repeat the whole recommendation to you there because that was well read. So there is a rationale behind the recommendation. This is something that you all passed a while back for the Regional Housing Authority to take care of. And basically, this is moving that responsibility from the Regional Housing Authority to the Habitat for Humanity to handle those responsibilities. But to refresh your memory, this application was submitted to the HOME program under the 2019 Notice of Funding Availability from the City of Marysville. And at that point, that's when the Regional Housing Authority was the city administrative subcontractor that would be responsible for carrying out the requirements for the HOME program and conditions outlined in the agreement. And then on January 6, 2022, the city received a letter from the Regional Housing Authority that they would be terminating the intergovernmental agency agreement entered into in December of 2021. And with this being a specialized service, there's extremely limited consultants in the area. So Habitat for Humanity has the required resources to handle this type of program. So on December 3rd, 2019, the City Council authorized the staff to prepare and submit an application to HCD under this special program and to provide provides income qualified homeowners in the City of Marysville the opportunity to participate in the city's owner-occupied housing rehabilitation program. And on October 13th, 2020, the city was notified it was awarded a grant amount of $1 million. The city received and executed the standard agreement from HCD and has been authorized to begin expending those grant funds. So the city's owner-occupied rehabilitation program will provide funds to assist low and moderate income homeowners whose primary residence is in need of repairs, improvements, and reconstruction necessary to correct health and safety deficiencies. Under the program, there are numerous procedural tasks required in order to ultimately qualify, and individual homeowners conduct property appraisals, review construction bids for work proposed to be done by qualifying residents. We conduct site inspections, walkthroughs, and improve payments and provide all the program record keeping and documentation required for the reporting to HCD. The city does not currently have the staff resources to undertake these tasks, so Habitat for Humanity has the background and the expertise for carrying out this housing rehabilitation program, and will be held to the same goals and milestones and performance measurements as the requirements entered with the standard agreement that we entered into with the Regional Housing Authority.
So we had an arrangement with the Regional Housing Authority.
Yes.
They backed out of it, and we were fortunate enough to find someone with the capabilities to execute on that endeavor.
That's it.
And this is to approve that change.
That's correct.
Okay.
Any questions on that?
Any questions? Any comment from the public first?
No comments tonight.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any questions from the council? Let's see, Vice Mayor has his hand up.
I think I found the answer, but I wanted to be sure, this is 23%. Habitat will receive 23% of the $1 million for funding for their portion of this.
Yes, it's an approximate amount that we have the estimated total at actually $197,317. And the payment,
That's an approximate amount, or that's an exact amount?
That's an approximate amount. Yeah.
Based on
what
if would make a difference.
Based on if we totally funded the program. So if we funded everybody at the $1 million, that would be the amount. There's a chance that we don't fund all million.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments?
To the chair.
Yes, sir.
Just thankful that Habitat's willing to step up and take it and run with it and keep this alive. I think it's beneficial to our low-income residents, and I know some folks that benefited from it in the previous contract, and it's a good thing to continue to move forward with.
I share your feeling, and I'm glad our city staff could make something like that happen. Do we have a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion. Oh, move.
We have a
Sorry,
motion.
Kate.
And
I got a second.
And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Committee appointments, Financial Audit Committee. It was formed on the consent calendar, and no objection, I appoint Vice Mayor Buttacavoli and myself to the Financial Audit Committee. Trust me, you don't want to compete for the job. It's not easy. And I see we have a Cemetery Committee, and I see Vice Mayor Buttacavoli, you want to make an appointment? The Cemetery Committee, and you are making an appointment. There's a gentleman in the audience, third row left, sitting on the aisle, Craig Carberry.
I would be more than glad to. I didn't realize that I was so glad to, but I would like to nominate Mr. Craig Carberry, replacing Loretta Johnson on the Cemetery Committee.
We're lucky to have him. We're lucky to have him. Craig's a great guy, and that's an important committee.
Good.
Thank you, sir. Yo. Okay. Committee reports. Councilmember Belson.
Nothing to report today. However, I think Councilman Gilchrist will probably talk about the MBA event. So, but nothing on my side.
Well, you did a lot to get that Brian Field at least across the finish line. Councilmember Gilchrist.
Nothing to report, as I'm very strong on social media. I don't know if any of you are or are not, but just as Belson mentioned, the NBA had an amazing event for the first Saturday, and so that was very successful. And that's it for community council comments on committees. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hudson.
I got nothing reported this one. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Buttacavoli.
Everything moving along with the rec development, which has been really going great. Chief's done a great job getting stuff done at the softball fields. Public Works is doing a great job at Bryant Field. We've got quite a few projects going there. I wanted to make just, I don't know if this falls into my committee, but on the, you asked about using the agreement with the Gold Sox as a template. This by far this one would not be. There's so many balls in the air playing on this particular one. We wanted to do a multi-year deal, but we were unable to because of so many unknowns. So
Well,
hopefully next year we'll be able to get a multi-year in place.
And you'll have a more solid foundation once the fence is all up and it's really ready to go.
Yeah. So thank you.
You bet. Councilmember Hudson. I just want to repeat what I think I said last time. I think I was on a committee dealing with Ellis Lake once upon a time. Anyhow, I live on the lake, and I walked over to the lake again this morning to make sure it's still the same. And in a 4-foot deep section of the lake, I could see the bottom. And you could not do that 3 months ago. And we're doing something right, and we don't know exactly what we're doing right yet. I think the carp removal had a great deal to do with it, but that's just a guess. And, I can ask the city manager. We tested the water quality at a point before doing all this work. And when are we going to test, do the next test to see what it looks like?
I don't have the reading with me, but I was looking at the before and after.
Well, we have the after readings.
And I haven't memorized those levels, but we've seen a significant reduction in the phosphate. However, public works staff was taking more samples this week. We analyzed if there were further improvements. And I mentioned it before, they treated the lake with about half of the estimated crosswalk treatment. If they feel we need more, they're ready to treat it again with the balance.
Well, the underlying message is the trend line is positive, and we're being diligent in observing progress, and
we'll know more next week.
Hopefully that continues. Okay, Madam Clerk, any correspondence to refer to the council?
Not for this meeting, Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. City Manager.
I was going to mention Ellis Lake Crosswalk. We just discussed that. We also had some promising news on the Prop 68 grant. They're actually wanting to come out and look at the site. So at least we're not out of the race yet. Hoping I'm not stealing anybody's thunder, I'll just say Cash for Carp is on this coming weekend.
And please give us more details on Cash for Carp.
I would prefer to let Councilmember Belza do that since he's heavily involved. There's also a roll and stroll the same weekend on D Street. Is that correct, Chief? 1104 D Street? E. I'm sorry. Oh, that's up near the lake. That's right. We had a good breakthrough with the underwriter on 80 RDA properties, and it looks like we've got that blessing now. Habitat for Humanity has applied for an application for some EV charging, electric vehicle charging at their lot, so that will be a welcome addition. On a less positive side, our PD folks were busy. They did give the owners of the Longs building a notice of violation letter. And so hopefully that will prompt them to do a little more work on cleaning up their mess.
The owners are CVS Corporation, and they're requiring pressure to act.
Yes. I mentioned earlier Little League out at Bryant Field starting tomorrow with Councilmember Belza throwing the first pitch. Marysville Hotel keeps going on cleaning up. Kudos to our council. The Brown lawsuit, that's one of our homeless lawsuits, was dismissed in court. So we're done with that, it looks like. And we've had a couple of new additions. We have a temp, Farheen Aziz, started in community development, and it's helping Ellen downstairs. And we have a CSO and senior CSO and new officer starting on the 23rd. So making progress.
We have, I know that the city has qualified 3 groups for potential development of the B Street property across the street from Ellis Lake. And what's the status of that? What are we waiting on now?
I'll turn it over to our community development director.
We're standing by waiting for their RFPs to be submitted with a deadline of June 15th.
So the RFP is they are going to submit actual proposals.
That's correct.
What do we anticipate these proposals to include?
At this point, we anticipate hotels for sure, for certain, and then some type of restaurants, but we're not exactly sure on the restaurants yet.
Please inform them that at least one member of the council, that being me, would be very disappointed not to see a restaurant included in their proposal.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I stole a little thunder there. I apologize. Council members' comments, requests. We're going to reverse the batting order. Vice Mayor Buttacavoli, anything to comment on a request?
I am just going to go back to giving Public Works some kudos. I've been out at the ball field with them multiple times. They've done a great job out there. On top of the fact, if you look around town, they're really doing a great job around town too. So I just want to give them one more shout out.
And well deserved. Thank you. Councilman Hudson.
So I just want to comment on the fact that I really like seeing just the city staff as a whole in the city council, in the city building, and fire department, police department. It is Police Appreciation Week still, isn't it, Chief Sachs? Yes. So I'd like to just thank you for them and what they do. And the fire department's still rolling as much as they are. I also want to say I went to the Taco Fest this last weekend, and so I did not get the early morning worm, and I got there a little late, and most of the taco trucks were out of food. But it was a good problem to see, and I was very pleased to see quite decent turnout well into the evening, and it worked out very well, and it was just great to see something like that happen more frequently with everything going on there. So everybody that made that happen with the organization, the organizers, and our staff and so forth, it was full force. It was kind of nice. Thank you. Good job.
Thank you, sir. And Councilmember Gilchrist.
So thank you, Finance Department, for the thorough budget. It's very exciting. Beautiful presentation. The Public Works Department, excellent job. And so I have some requests from city staff. I'd like to look into the garbage cans along the Merchant D Street and find out the scheduling of ecology. What kind of new garbage cans, if there is a grant for new garbage cans that would minimize the opening, so that, a garbage can on a city street is for guests who are shopping to pop a few things in. And so we'd like to encourage that and not the use for merchants. So I'd like to look into that and come up with some way of replacing the garbage cans as they are now. They're plastic, and sometimes someone starts them on fire. So it would be great to look at doing new garbage cans. I would like to work with the Public Works Department on updating the tree list and all that entails with our city trees. I would like to work with the Community Development Department on the historic paint colors. I think that needs to be updated. It was done before, and I'd like to do it again. I would like to also talk to community development about including and increasing the list of historic homes in Marysville, as it's 50 years. And there are several homes that are within that should be recognized. So I have a request from the Economic Development Department on the status of the property management company for the upcoming Eastlake apartment building that's going in, the 71 units. I have many constituents who are very interested in learning how to get a unit there. And so I would like to find out when who the property management company is. When are they going to start receiving applications? Are they going to do a lottery like Elk Grove did? And that's my question about the upcoming East Lake Apartments. And then I want to discuss the noise element, which is coming up. I have questions from the constituents on whether or not a noise element includes nightlife. So if there's a nightlife venue in an area that has residential housing, does the noise element look at how to handle that? That's a big question that I'd like to have answered. And those come from constituents. You know, those are my questions. I would also like to mention that the city of Marysville lost a very important member of the community, merchant Anthony Pope. And so he was once a Yuba City police officer, and he had an embroidery shop in Chinatown, and I've just learned of his death, and a lot of us did. And so I would like to just have a moment to remember him and his family at this time. Thank you.
Councilman Belzer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Got a couple things to acknowledge and talk about. First, our emergency services. Glad to see the CSO positions getting filled. I know it's been a long haul, and hopefully that will have a good positive impact on some of the things we're trying to achieve. So good job, Chief, on that. Kudos to the fire department. I was at a Little League game earlier, or last week, tail end of last week, I think, and or Saturday it was. Anyhow, elderly man had some issues, and the fire department showed up, and I just want to applaud them, not just in how they handled the situation, but they handled the family very well, and almost like a salesman. It was pretty good. So anyways, good job to the fire department. You guys are doing a good job, and I got to witness it firsthand. A couple of things that are coming up. Fishing derby this weekend, and as a Marysville Kiwanian, I got to communicate pretty well with Mr. Shad in regards to this carp situation. So there were some different dollar amounts that were kind of thrown out, but what was settled on was $1 an inch per carp up to 24 inches. And we're anticipating there's still, even though we extracted a lot of carp, there's still a fair amount that are left in there. So
and that is a bargain compared to what we paid to have
you're 100% right. I did the math on it, and I won't tell what the numbers were, but this will be really beneficial if we can get some carp. So we're going to have a booth set up there as the city of Marysville, and as people are finishing up their tournament, they're going to be able to bring their carp and receive some payment, and we should have a good time in that process. It might be a little smelly, but nonetheless, it'll be fun. So we're looking for, I'm planning on sitting in on the booth probably from 9 to 11 ballpark, and looking for other council members who want to volunteer to sit there and help measure carp as they come in this Saturday, 9 to 11. And I believe where the monument is, you'll find it. Just walk around the lake. You'll see the tent. Anyhow, that's the fishing derby this weekend. Should be pretty good. And then also sat in on a strategy meeting with Salove. There's a lot of stuff going on around the cemetery right now. I want to say congrats to Craig Carberry. I've known Craig almost my whole life, and he's a good addition. Love the Owl Project. But Salove this month is going to be receiving about 20 loads of the ground up asphalt off of 5th Street. And that's going to be applied to our cemetery, and it's going to be cleaned up, and it's going to make the pathways and the walkways a lot nicer than it has been. So there's going to be a really great project at the end of this month. So as always, invite everybody to come out to that last Saturday of the month. So those are the, we also Friday, Bruce and I, we each had our own teams, but got to play in the elected officials golf tournament, charity golf tournament, which Mark Boomgarden over in Yuba City won. I'm not sure who his charity was, but we're going to come after him harder next year and whip up on him and get some money for one of our charities. So, but it was a lot of fun. It was good seeing a lot of those guys. So, now for the big announcements and the fun things. The second biggest probably is, I think everybody should give a little bit of gratitude to my wife, because today is our anniversary and I'm here until 9 o'clock at night. So she's very patient with the duties of the city. So anyways, want to say happy anniversary to her. And then recently we found out that we're going to be having a fourth child, and we had a ultrasound yesterday, and first one, and the baby's healthy and everything looks good. And when you hear that heartbeat, fathers, when you hear that heartbeat for the first time, it just breaks you down. So yeah, it's good. So there's my comments for the evening.
Oh, happy anniversary. Oh, great. I'll be brief. Quickly, forgive me, Chief, but when the unmuffled motorcycle went by, I'm reminded of how often I hear something like that. It's frequent. It's not infrequent. It is frequent, and it's cars, motorcycles, and what have you. If you'd please remind your officers, there are certain violations they can write up, and that'd be one they could consider. Finance, I want to thank our finance director and the entire management team who put together the preview on the budget. The management team presents a recommended budget. We will, in pairs or in singles, members of the council, have deeper discussions on that. And then there will be a synthesis, and we'll have a complete budget before the end of the fiscal year. Anyway, I know it's a lot of work, and there's a lot of thought that goes into it, and it was well presented. Let's see. Oh, I attended a gathering at the Marysville Art Club. I'll try to be brief here. Marysville Art Club, they have a tea every year. I wish they'd have one more often, because the one I went to on Saturday at the art club was well attended. Room was full, tables everywhere, and it was packed. I was one of 4 gentlemen, the rest ladies, and some of the ladies brought daughters and granddaughters, because there's some very young ladies there in pretty dresses, and everybody was having a tea. And it reminded me of, I've been fortunate enough to travel to England and former English crown colonies, where high teas are a real event. And this one was really wonderful. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I then made my way to the Taco Festival, and I'll tell you what, Marysville knows how to have an event. We really do. That was just absolutely packed. The side streets and all the children, it was absolutely grand. And then unfortunately, I went to one of the local bars. I won't mention the name because I was in the spirit, so I ordered a margarita. And the bartender brought me a drink that was as clear as that, and I knew it wasn't a margarita. But I did find one eventually. And I drove home responsibly, Chief. Anyway, that was really a happy day. Marysville is a good place, and when we have events like that and other events, it just reminds you of what Marysville brings to the party that other locations in the region don't. We have a wonderful, inviting location for having fun. Next meeting, Tuesday, June 7th, 6 p.m. Sure.
Recording stopped.
Live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com.